Alright, so let's do another episode on my swamp shovel chopper build. So I want to start pulling this engine apart because I want to start collecting some parts for it. So before we can start collecting any parts for this engine, we need to work out what it needs. So I want to, in this episode, completely go through this engine. I want to tear it all the way down to split flywheel, split crank, split cases, the whole lot. I want to tear it all the way down so I know what parts I need to get. I'm over here down under in Australia, and sometimes parts are super annoying to get from the States. It could take me 2 or 3 weeks to get parts from the States. So it's not like I'm in America, I can pull something apart and get parts for this thing down the road. So I need to be a little bit proactive about this thing and pull it apart early, work out what I need, order it from the States and wait for it. So let's go through this thing, rip it apart. I'm not going to go through it in too much depth, but I want to sort of shoot through this thing. Most people only watch a half an hour video on YouTube anyway, so if I make this thing too long and in depth, you don't watch it anyway. So let's quickly go through this thing, knock it out, get this thing pulled apart, work out what parts we need, and then in another episode we can start building this thing back up. So let's start with the heads and start knocking this thing apart. Right, so I think the way I'm going to tackle this, I might just pull this thing apart, and then in the order I take it apart, I might just have a look and inspect the parts. That way you guys can just fast forward to the part that you might be most interested in, and you can see me inspect it and work out whether it's good or not in time. So what I'm going to do to start with, fuck, that was a bit short. Anyway, what we're going to do to start with, we're just going to pop our rocker boxes off. Now, if your engine's in your frame, you can't pop your rocker boxes off, you've got to pull the whole head off. So, super annoying if you have a shovel in your frame like I do, my generator shovel, and your rocker boxes are pissing out oil. You can't just change the gaskets on your rocker boxes. You've got to pull the whole heads off, and you've got to do the head gaskets and rocker box gaskets. Super annoying. Now, I know a lot of you are going to fucking have a whinge that I'm using a fucking rattle gun to pull this apart. Sure, fair enough, I'm not going to use a rattle gun to put an engine together, but pulling apart, who really gives a fuck? This is steel on steel, these are steel studs. Sure, if it was an aluminium hole or something, you wouldn't do it because you might snap the aluminium thread out, but this is steel on steel, who cares? Stop being frigid. So a stock bolt will be a 1/2 inch. Someone has put an aftermarket one here and it's 3/4 for some reason. So all my bolts off. Let's try not to lose my freaking washers. And then we just get ourselves a humble little hammer. Get ourselves a humble hammer here. Try and pull this thing apart. I've forgotten one. Put the wrong size on, it's 1/2 inch. Right, now we're in business. This is really going to be the telltale of what this thing's going to be like. And straight away off the bat, I don't see any rust on... Ooh, this guy looks a bit fast, boy. I don't see any rust on our springs, which is a good start. The other promising sign here, this rocker box has been modified for extra lift. So maybe you can't see on the top of these springs, we have aluminium retainers and collets. So all this has been upgraded at some point. You can see this has been gouged out to accept the larger top collet. So with any luck, we might find something fast going on down here. There might be a nice cam in it. Maybe this thing hasn't been gone through too long ago. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to quickly pull this rear rocker box off, and then we'll come back and start pulling the heads off. Righto, so I got both of these rocker boxes off, and like I was saying, these things have been fast boyed a bit. Those valve retainers must come up right in here, so they've had to knock both sides of this out, but that is not normal. The other thing that you want to look at with your heads is your rocker lash like that. So this is one of the main contributors to a shovel head making a heap of noise when it sits there and idles. See that side to side movement there? See how that bangs back and forth? You can hear the noise. And that is when this thing, it's in both heads too. When this thing's sitting there idling most, when it's not very fast, it'll sit there and make that noise. So what we're gonna have to do when we come through and rebuild this thing, we have to change the O-rings in the top of our rocker here anyway. So what we'll do, we'll pull this rocker out and we will machine it. I will show you, you can shim these, but it's way better to machine them. And I'll show you that when we rebuild it. So you guys are gonna have to stay tuned. So what we're gonna start doing next, we're gonna start pulling our heads off. Now, I always like to start with the front head because when you're in the bike, the front head's the easy one to get off, the rear's the hard one to get off. So do yourself a favor, take the front one off first, get the most of the shit out of the way so you can get in there and work on your rear head. So basically, I just noticed this one has a random fucking bolt in it. But anyway, these should be a 9/16 spanner like that. They should be relatively tight, and all I really do, I just use a little hammer there, knock them loose. That one's different, like I said, which is strange. So is that one, so is that one, and so is that one. So, I don't know what's going on here, but it is all over the shop. So, usually they're just a 9/16 the whole way around. This one has 7/16 in it for some reason. So, the 7/16 spanner, same thing, just go around with a hammer. They're pretty loose, really, so I'll be lucky that I'm doing this. I'm going to go through, undo all of these with both heads, and then we'll come back and knock them off. Righto, I have pulled the bolts out of this thing now. I'm laughing because this is a perfect example why you don't judge a book by its cover. But I just wanted to touch on first, I said there was two different bolts in this thing. So in later model stuff, as I understand, obviously the internal's getting bigger because they went to an 80 cube. So they went to a 3.5 inch barrel. So this space beside the bolt gets smaller and smaller around the jug. So what they did, they went to a smaller head on their bolt. So this is an early, if this wants to focus, this is an early style and this is a late style. So obviously it is a smaller radius to get a spanner on there so you can fit it up against the barrel. So I'm going to put a full set of this late style small head in there just so I can get in there and tighten it up. But for some reason there was both in there. I don't know why. Now, I'm laughing about this thing because this is a don't judge a book by its cover moment. This thing looks like an absolute piece of shit on the outside. We saw that it had some Fast Guy hot rod valve retainers here. And after I pulled the head off, I look in here and there is high comp pistons in here. This thing has some shit going on. So it looks brand new in here. All these barrels have been freshly honed. There's a little bit of rust up here I reckon will hone out, but there is some awesome looking pistons in here. Get in and have a quick look. Have a look in there. They are some high comp domed pistons. Don't mind all the crap down there, but look at the barrels. They are pretty freshly honed. Has a little bit of rust here, but like I said, I reckon that'll probably clean up with a hone. This is gonna be awesome. This thing fucking could be hot rod as. I'm gonna do everything I can. I might even check the stroke on this thing. Look, we might get lucky. Maybe this thing's a stroker, maybe it's not, but like I said, I have both heads all undone here. Not quite sure what this stuff is. There is some wild shit in these barrels. There is a couple of rust marks in it, but that's to be expected after sitting around for so long. But this thing has nice steel head gaskets in it and everything. So I'm pretty excited to see what the rest of this thing looks like. That looks fucking awesome, but as I said, let's go through the parts as I pull them out. So let's do our heads now. Let's pull our valves out, have a look what our guides are like, and see if see how much of an overhaul these heads need. See if they need new guides, new valves, all that stuff. So I'm going to go over to my trusty pedestal drill, and we're going to take these valve springs off. Righto, same old deal. You guys have seen this a million times. I'm just going to jam this in here. Trusty little... Oh, there's a bit of weight to those springs. Maybe it's got some heavier springs in it too. I'm fucking hoping this engine's got a cam in it. Holy shit, this would be a good purchase if it's got a cam in it. Let's just take these springs off. And I'll do both, and then we can go to the bench and suss these things out. There's no valve stem seals on it, which is asking for leaking, asking to put oil into the valves. Oh, see you later, Collet. I mean, asking to put oil into the barrels, so I'll definitely be putting some of them on when we put this back together. Let's go to the bench and have a look at this thing. Righto, so the most important thing about your valve is, what the fuck is this? There's like a fucking black caviar in here. What the hell is that? I don't even fucking know what that is. It fucking smells like exhaust. Anyway, most important things is our valve guides here. So what we'll do, we'll just pull our valves out, have a look at them. They look pretty nice, really. They're fucking solid, guys. And obviously with a... Oh, that's fucking a bit solid. Must be a bit of rust on that guy. Yep. That's alright. Looks like we got it in time. The one thing about shovel stuff, early pan is 1.5 inch intake and exhaust, but on later pan coming into shovel, we run into 1.75 inch intake valve. So that makes it fast boy. So what we do, we put our valve back in, and then we just sort of pull this thing out a bit like that, and then we just want to give it a up and down, back and forth, wiggle it around. This one's not moving at all. So this guide is still freaking good. That's awesome. That means we can just do the seats and then put this back together. So intake, what's exhaust is usually more beat up than what your intake is. So exhaust cops a lot more heat, you know, there's a lot more shit going on there, so it's usually a bit more beat up. So let's have a look at this. It feels pretty good. Oh, there's a little bit. See that moving there? So that is pretty fucked. So the intake will probably get away with, but that exhaust, no freaking dice. So this thing's going to need some guides in it. It would have been a fairy tale ending if that was, you know, good intake and exhaust and we could put it back together, but can't win them all. Brand new plugs too. What the hell's going on here? Right, so I'll go through. I'll do exactly the same thing. Which head was that? I'll do exactly the same with our front head, and then we'll get on to cracking these barrels off and have a look at these pistons. Alrighty, now that I have my heads done, let's go ahead and pull our barrels off and check out these pistons. Now, I've already gone through, I've loosened all of this stuff, so I can just come through here with my fingers and undo all our base bolts. So when I do this, I like to have the pistons at the bottom of the stroke. You have to do that if you're taking these off in the frame, because your barrels will hit the top tube if you don't. So all we do is reef on them just like that. These barrels have seen fuck all, and these pistons are fucking brand new. They've never been run. See, like, that's just old hone stuff, but in there is super nice. I'll definitely be getting away with not boring these things again. I'll just give them a quick little hone, I reckon. But obviously there is some scratches in there because there was rust sitting on top of these pistons, rust and crap from it sitting around for so long. And when I've turned it over to free it up, I must have scratched it a bit. But nothing a hone won't fix. Once again, they look fucking nice. Let's turn this over and have a look at these pistons. This is when you can check out your bottom end too. See how much life this thing's had. And it feels freaking nice. So like I said, the pistons have a little bit of scratches on the skirts. Won't stop me from using them. I'm going to take the pistons off completely, but I will be checking these rings again when we put it back together. The way you check your rings, you obviously put your rings in your barrels and then you check your gap between your ring and that. You want a decent gap in there because these things get hot, the ring expands, and if that ring crashes into itself, it just does this and blows the top of the piston off. So we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to mark these pistons front and rear, and then we're going to take them off. I just want to have a look at what's been done here, see, you know, maybe some crackheads put this together, maybe someone was, you know, smoking a bit of something when they put this together and it's not amazing. So I'm going to put on here FF, and that's front, and then it'll be whatever, RR, rear. So we know which direction this piston goes in. I want to put it back in the same way it's come apart. FF for fuckface. What's RR? Retard comes to mind, but I can't say that anymore. So I've got these pistons off here. They have been put on pretty shit, and there's like 3 different clips. There's the circlip style like that, and then there was just the normal style like that, and then there was another style. So whoever's put this together is not real fucking fancy on the gear. So I'll put all new clips in that, but look at these pistons. They are brand new inside, have never been started. So this is a good score. So now that we've got these pistons off, we want to take our pins out, right? So we want to check our wrist pin bushes. So what we do to do that, we just get our pin, chuck it in here like that. We want to make sure this is a good fit. So just give it a rock back and forth. There is no movement in that. So we want to check it with the right ones. So once again, well, this one's a bit tighter. That one is quite tight. So I might go through and give this one a little linish, a little hone. I've got a tiny little hone that we'll put in here just to fix that up. That's a little bit tight. We sort of want it like this. So it looks like there's a little mark here, and that's probably why, yeah. That is why it's done that. So let me get my little hone and I'll show you what we're going to do. Righty, so when I say hone, this is what I'm talking about. This is a little brake hone cylinder. So look, this is what it's called. It's a brake cylinder hone. So this does like, I think it's 3/4 all the way up to fucking 2 1/4 or something. So all I'm going to do with this is we just put it in our freaking drill. Just like that. We'll get put a little bit of oil in here. I don't care what goes in the cases because we're pulling this thing apart. So we're just going to put this guy in there and give this a little hone. So a little bit at a time, rag. I'm not sure what's happened in there, but it looks like someone's tried to hit it out with a screwdriver and bug it up the bush a little bit, but try our pin again. Oh, it's close. Righto, so I'm just going to keep doing that until this goes in nicely. Don't forget oil. A little bit at a time, remember. Clean out all the trash before you test the pin. There we go, it's getting there. Look at that. That's it. That's all we wanted to do. That tiny little bit is all it needs. We just want that to be able to go back and forth nicely like that. So that's the pins done. Next, let's go through the barrels and I'll show you how we're going to check that with the rings and all that jargon before we pull the rest of this apart. Right, so let's inspect our barrels and pistons here. So I want to go through and fix up some of these little rust spots it's got first before we check our rings in here. So remember, we want to keep our front and rear barrels separate. Now, easy way to tell the difference, a rear barrel has a larger flange on the bottom. So just look for that. The other way, it's a bit more difficult. You can look for where the push rods go. So that's it. Back is where that oil drain is. Push rod's in the front, and you can tell which direction it goes and where it lives. So with our barrels here, we want to do exactly the same thing we did with the pin, just with a bigger hone. So this is another engine cylinder hone, obviously just a wee bit bigger. And I'm just going to go through and clean up this fucking rust and shit before we check these rings. If we check the rings before, for one, it's going to get oil and all that fucking rust in it, and two, we're not going to get a right measurement because this will probably make it a little bit larger. So I'm just going to sit this up on a little bit of stool so it's level. I'm just going to go through and give this a quick go. Alright, same as the pin, you want to just do little bits at a time and then clean it up with a rag. It shouldn't really take much, I just want to get some of those rust spots out. Remember, these rings are going to be scraping up and down this a bazillion times, so they will clean some shit up themselves. But you can just see that little bit of rust mark it's got there? If you put your finger in it, there's actually nothing there. It's just a little witness mark on the spun cast. So it's actually not that bad. So I'm going to do one more little hone on this, and then we're going to call that done, and we'll do the same to the rear. Now, I'm not sure if you've watched any hone stuff. The best hone scores to get, when I say hone scores, I mean the scratches in the barrel. We want those scratches to be 45. So that is the best way a hone can work. So the scratches are 45 like that. So the way we want to do that is on slow and then moving in and out quickly. So we want to, I'll move this so you can see it better. In and out quickly. Just like this. And you can see the marks in there. So you want them to be a 45. That's the most optimal score. Alright, only takes a little bit, you don't have to go crazy with it. So that's probably all we need. Clean this thing back up. And then we'll have a look at these rings. We want to test the rings in here and make sure they are right. But you can see that score, that is a nice score. It's pretty well 45. You can sort of just see the outline of it, and that's what you want. So with our pistons here, we want to keep our rings separate. We want to remember our top ring and our second ring. Usually second ring's pretty easy because it's got a chrome skirt. So this chrome lip here. So all we do, take our rings off. This is front piston. We want to measure these in the barrels that they're going in. So, it's a little bit stuck. So we want top piston and which way is up. So usually they have a little mark. These ones do not. Or a chamfer. So we just keep top on the top, don't spin it or anything, and then second ring. To be honest, I've never put them in the wrong way, so I'm not exactly sure what happens when you put them in the wrong way, but I'm sure there's a reason for it, so we'll just stick to that. These rings are a little bit tight in there with rust, so I don't want to freaking break these things. Looks like they have been ground because someone's done a shit job at grinding them. But see, this was upside down. See that little tiny mark right there, little dot? That's supposed to be up. So someone has fucked this up, and I'm pretty sure the chrome ring is supposed to be at the top as well. So I think someone has fucked this up. Second ring is your sharp ring. Top ring has a chamfer. So see the little chamfer it's got on the top here as well? So that goes like that on the top. So someone had these round the wrong way. It's pretty common. That's why we're pulling this apart and checking it out. And the oil rings don't fucking matter. So your oil rings will come off in 3 pieces. Got 2 rings like this. They come off first. Got to find the end of it right there. 2 rings come off, and then our oil wiper comes off. So this is the guy that sort of wipes oil up and down the skirt and controls your oil. So that's that guy like that. That needs a good clean. That has some rust in it. So all we do, we want to get these rings, clean them up, just like that. We want to clean our piston as well, and I'll show you why in a second. Nothing crazy, just want to get the crap off it. I've wiped me fucking thing off it. Anyway, so what we do, we get our barrel like that, get our top ring, put it in there, just like that, and then we get our piston, right? And we just push the ring down with our piston, and that squares up the ring in the barrel, just like that. So that squares the ring in the barrel like that. And then this little, probably a little hard to see, but that little break there in the ring, that's what we want to measure. So we get our feeler gauge and we want to aim for about 12 thou. Now I'm still using my fucking Imperial feeler gauges here. So let me get my, pretty sure 12 was 0.2 or something. 0.25, measure it with this. Nope, doesn't have to be crazy close, but bigger is better than smaller. If you go smaller and these rings crash into each other, you are in for a bad time. So I'm shooting for 12 thou. So that pisses it in. So that's cool. Top ring's good. Let's have a look at our second ring. Once again, let's go through, clean it up first, and really save a bit of hassle. Starting to rain at my joint. There's supposed to be a cyclone in the next few days, so can't wait for that. Once again, put him in, piston squares it up. We're just gonna measure that little gap there. Put our feeler gauge in. Sweet. Goes in a freaking treat. So just do 12 thou on all of them. That's close enough. And we will good to go. So that is front cylinder done. I'm going to go through and do the rear cylinder now. And then we'll start taking the chest off, all the lifters and all that crap. Have a look in there. I reckon there might be a cam in there. Got my fingers crossed. So I'm sure there's a few of you yelling at your TV now because I forgot a step. And you're completely right. There is a little bit more measuring I need to do on these. So what we're going to do, there's 2 things we're going to measure. We're going to measure how parallel these barrels are, so make sure they are pretty straight. And the other thing we want to measure is piston to bore clearance. That is super common to get wrong, and if it's not right, the thing will seize up when it gets hot. We want plenty of cylinder to piston clearance so that these things are obviously a steel barrel, so they hold heat a lot more than say your Evo. Evo was revolutionary because of its aluminium barrels. It's able to disperse its heat so much better, where a Shovelhead or any iron barrel engine sort of absorbs heat and then it sort of retains it. It sort of heat soaks itself. So we always give a bit more piston to bore clearance. So first things first, you have to measure this stuff pretty accurately. I'm going to do it with a telescopic mic here and a mic. So we're going to just go in here and do this in a few spots. So I'm going to go right down the bottom, measure this, and then I'm just going to have a look at the differences top to bottom and then side to side. So let's have a quick look what we're working with. Alright, so let's have a look at the top. Bang on, side to side. Within fuck all. Now side to side down the back. So if you have a look in your book, it'll tell you what this is supposed to be. Mine is within 1 thou, so that's more than enough. Pretty sure it's 3 thou or something it's supposed to be, or 2 thou. Have a look in your book, it'll tell you. I know that that's enough, so let's do the same on our rear cylinder here. How close is it to the front? Pretty freaking close. As I said, the most important one is probably your piston to bore clearance. In the book, it says like 1 thou or something, which is nowhere near enough. You want to, in Australia, it is fucking hot here. Sure, you could run 1 thou if you were in, a cold climate, but in Australia, it's super hot. So these things get super hot. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of clearance. So let's measure how much clearance we've got. I've measured my piston, and now we're going to measure the difference. So this is 0.01, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0.06. So I'm measuring this in imperial again. In metric. So I've just got to convert that. I'm pretty sure 0.1 is 4. So we're looking at, say, 2.5 thou of piston to bore clearance, which is perfect. Like I said, the book asks for 1. In Australia, you want to run 2.5 to 3. Doesn't fucking matter if there's a little bit of slop in there. When these things get hot, your piston expands and it takes up that gap. Doesn't fucking matter. So rear is good. Let's have a look at the front. So the other thing, some of your pistons, these are sporty pistons. So they have they're not sports start, they are hot rod pistons. But they have a little cutout here where the skirt is, where the pin goes. So on a standard style, you'll just have a cone sort of thing. This will just be a round skirt around the whole thing. And you want to measure it opposite your pin. So because there's more material in your pin, this expands more. So if you were to measure a piston here and here, they're going to be different. This is going to be the larger measurement because there's less material. This will be the smaller measurement because there's more material and it expands more. So you always want to measure it opposite the pin. Righto, that's that. Measure our bore. See what we're working with. We were 0.06 on that, so about 2.5 thou. What's this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, same thing. So we are well within tolerance with our piston size. We are good with our rings. Our barrels are nice and straight. So that is pretty well all I have to do with these things. Now let's get back to our bottom end. All right, so I'm back on the bottom end here. I have all the bolts out of my lifter blocks here. So I want to take these things out first. So when we take our chest apart, all our lifters don't fall in there and make a mess. So we'll take these off. But first I wanted to let you in on a little secret. With these engines, if you're going to look at buying something, or maybe it's a bike or whatever, the best way to work out what's going on inside the engine is to check the lifter screen. So this screen is basically a built-in filter that your engine has to stop shit from going into your hydraulic lifters. Now, not all engines are going to have this. Hydraulic lifter engines have it. A lot of people have them in solid lifter engines, which you don't need to, but it's always worthwhile looking at. So this will tell you basically what's going on inside the engine. So this guy here is the lifter screen. It's always fucking been over tightened. So usually you got to give it a bit of a knock to get it loose. This one's really fucking tight. Righto. So like I said, this is the best way to check out the condition of an engine. Because if a bearing's letting go, if there's something in this engine, it's going to end up in this lifter screen. 9 times out of 10, everyone doesn't have a fucking filter on their choppers anyway. So this is where it's going to end up. So take this guy out, and this will tell you a lot about the engine. That is it. They call it a witch's hat, lifter screen, whatever you want to call it. So the oil comes through here first and then goes out to the lifters. So all your shit gets caught on the inside. Now you can see a little bit of shit in there, but that's what it just looks like, dirt. Doesn't look like anything bad's going on in there. So looks like we have a pretty clean oil system here. So I'm just going to leave that out. I'm going to completely strip this anyway. No point putting it back in. Anyway, I took all the bolts out of my lifters. Just give them a knock like that to free them. And then, oh, it does look like there's a healthy new cam in there. So let's get started on this first. So you've seen me do this 1,000 times. Oh, there's a bit of rust on top of that guy. Looks savable, but. So we're going to go through, check our freaking rollers. So pull him out, see the rust we've got on top there. Not the end of the world, not too much scoring. No play in my lifters here. Like I said, I'm not going for a full brand new everything build. I want to reuse as much of this stuff as possible. There's 2 reasons for that. 1, keeping costs down, obviously, and the second reason is you'll be surprised how much better old stuff is than new stuff. Sure, you can buy all your bearings and everything new, but you'll find all the old stuff is better than the new stuff. The materials are harder, it's built better, it's built to last. We live in a throwaway world where they make stuff shitty and not last very long, so you have to buy it again. That's their motto. So once again, nice wheel. There's a little bit of rust on it, but I'm just going to polish that off when I come through and get all this rust out of here. So those lifters are all right. I've just noticed a huge crack in my lifter block. So that is not all right. Look at that big crack up there. So that is fucked. That is a throwaway item. Luckily, I found a set of lifters and blocks at a swap meet the other day. So that is a throwaway item. These are good though. So I'll keep them. Let's have a look at the other one. Comes out nice. This thing has been sitting around for a while, so I'm not surprised it has shit like this going on. But wheels are good, shafts are good. Give that a clean up, it'll be $1 million. Now I'm not going to bother keeping these in the same spot like I always do because, as you saw, one of the lifter blocks is fucked anyway, so it's going to need to be replaced. But all these lifters seem good. Look at the shit on it. It's a poor thing, but it still works good. No crunchiness in the fucking bearings, nothing. So they're all good. Lifter block fucked, so I'm not sure that's a throwaway job. So let's get into this engine. It's still full of oil, so I'm going to get something to put under here so I can drain this thing when I pop the front cover off. So, got myself all the bolts out of this thing. I have a little drain tray here. Let's see what we're dealing with. Nice little shock to... Oh, there's water coming out. That's a good start. Look at the water coming out. That is a great start. What have you sold me, Brody, you dog? Oh, she's a bit tight. This is what you're not meant to do. There it is. Oh, look at that milkshake coming out of there. Very nice, Brody. See me coming from a mile away. Come on, be a good cam. Well, that looks pretty nice. Nothing too special to report. Gasket. Looks like it's been on there for not too long, actually. It doesn't look like an old gasket. Come on, Cam. What are we working with? Andrew's B-grind, baby. I knew it had to have a cam. You don't put fucking pistons and valve springs and stuff in an engine without doing a cam. So she is fucking cammed up. Now, what sort of conditions the cam in is the next question. I want to check all the tops of your lobes because that's where all the pressure is. All good. This back bit. This cam's been running for a while. Fuck yeah, B-grind cam. It looks fucking mint. So we want to keep our washers and retainers and thrust washers there. Let's put that aside. Let's have a look at our breather. Seems pretty stuck. It was a little bit tough to turn over, and I wonder if that's the breather. Oh, yep, that was the breather being tough to turn over. Now, this is why you don't just start this shit up and hope for the best. That's how you score. These things have a terrible, terrible issue of scoring this breather housing here, and that's what this was doing. So I'm glad I didn't turn that over too many times. Pull it apart, clean the frickin' thing. So glad we got that. But basically that is all we are. What the fuck is this? It's like mouse house or something in there. All of this fucking good stuff. Look at that. Fucking hell, bro. You see me coming. But all in all, looks alright in there. The flywheels, just looking through our cam bush here, look like they've got a little bit of rust on them. So I'm glad that we are pulling this thing completely down and checking that out. So next thing I want to pull apart is our oil pump. So we'll pull all the shaft. I'll probably leave the shaft and everything. Oh, I don't know. I'll probably blast the oil pump just because it looks so fucked. So let's get onto that next. So let's do a bit of cleanup here, I reckon. Right, so I've got all the bolts on my little oil pump cracked. It was funny, when I cracked these bolts, the rods started to turn over. So there must have been some resistance inside the pump. So let's have a look what's going on in here. So this is another good indicator of, you know, stuff going through the engine, because it obviously will go through the oil pump because it picks up just down here in front of the oil pump. So scores and stuff will be a good indicator that something has gone through this engine, and then most of the time that is going to go through your big end as well. But it looks really nice in here. All that looks good. Look how nice and clean this is. So there's a scavenge side and then an oil pumping side. So this is your pump side, and then your scavenge side is behind it. So obviously this is a dry sump engine. So what that means is it's always pumping oil into the engine and always pumping it out into an external oil tank. It doesn't hold oil underneath, inside the sump. It holds it externally. So we'll just have a look. Inside our little gears looks super nice. So always be a bit more gentle and petite with the oil pump. It is quite a delicate ecosystem. I'm just going to keep all this on a nice little clean rag there. And sometimes if you're just doing an engine reseal, or you're just resealing the oil pump, always keep the old seal, because there is like 4 or 5 different gaskets. And if you get the wrong gasket on there with the hole in the wrong spot, you will starve your engine of oil. So little trick, keep these guys. So to get this, you have to get this gear off, you've got to take a little clip off. So there's a tiny little circlip here that you've got to get off to get that gear off. These can be super frustrating to get off sometimes and really easy to bend. Usually when you get a oil pump seal kit, it'll come with new ones. So always good to replace them, because once they're fucked, they don't work very well. And they are super frustrating. You usually fucking taking them off. Or you flick them across the room like I'm about to do. Come on, mate. Sometimes you can push the gear on the inside to give yourself a bit more room like that, and then pop it off just like that. So pull this guy off. Just be careful in here when you jam shit in like I am. So that looks nice too. Remember, there's a little key back here. That's what spins it. I'm gonna drop it. There it is. Little key. And then usually you've got 2 more bolts here that hold the back on, but for some reason they just haven't bothered putting them on. So I don't have to worry about them. I will be putting them on when I put this back together though. So we pull this off, and on the back side is our scavenge side. So you can't mix these gears up because scavenge side are bigger than pump side. So remember all that. There's a little key in here as well. There's 2 keys on the outside of the shaft. They're both the same. And if you can, try and save this gasket. This is the most important one. See all these holes it's got? 1, 2, 3, 4. Different years have different holes and different shit going on. So if you save this gasket, you know which one to put back on. So I'm just going to put that to the side as is, and I can work out what gasket it needs. But that's really all we have to do with the outside of the oil pump. But to get this shaft out, you've got to take the circlip off inside the case here. Now that is pretty fucking annoying and hard to do. So I'm going to do this the other way around. Because I need to get the crank out, I need to pull this stuff off anyway. So I'm going to pull off my pinion drive gear, my oil pump drive, pull all this stuff off, and it's going to be easier to get in there and take that oil pump drive gear off. The other thing, to get our nut off the pinion here, you need a special tool. So this is, see how it's like a rectangle nut? That goes on there, and then you use a rattle gun and undo it. This is a special Jim's tool. If you guys want the freaking part number, there it is. Nut is left-hand thread, all right? If you try and make yourself a tool, just remember it's a left-hand thread. And usually you've got to pull this off, and then it only goes one way as well. So don't worry about which direction it goes on. So left-hand thread means the direction you would do it up normally is the direction it's going to undo. That was quite loose. Usually they're fucking tight. And then usually this is a puller job. Sometimes you can get away with doing that. Not today. So I'll get my puller out. We'll pull this off. I'll pull all of this crap out. And then we will get to splitting these cases. I just wanted to show you the bits that you're dealing with when you take this thing apart. So you've got 2 keys. One key is the one at the back for your oil pump drive. And then you have a spacer. And then you have your timing gear, pinion drive gear. And they're both just on keys. Pretty simple. And I had to use my little puller on there just to get it off. Now when you do that, don't be afraid to give it a good tap with, I just put that was there, I just went through there with a punch, gave that a tap, and that's what released it. So let's get all this jargon out of the way. Always bag this stuff up, you know, in the family they go in. So you know where this shit goes. Makes your life so much easier putting this back together. You know what else makes your life easier? Having a video like this that I can look back on and go, oh, hold on a second, that's what I did there. So maybe you can do that at home as well. I have already got the little circlip off for my oil pump drive gear here. So it seems a bit stuck. So we want to get that off. It has a key on it again, but it seems pretty, there it goes. So we want to get this gear off. Oh no, we want to push it through first, like that, to get the key, which is sitting right there. Sometimes a magnet is your friend to get the key out, just like that. That is the tiny little key focus, tiny little key we are working with. That out, and then the shaft comes out, and then our oil pump drive gear. See, it's quite rusty. All the water will pile up in the bottom there. That is pretty straightforward. Shaft looks all right. You can buy all this stuff brand new if your stuff looks shit, but I want to reuse as much of this as possible because like we said, early stuff is usually better than new stuff anyway. So all my oil pump stuff together, all there is left to do now is we want to split this case. So I just want to pull something off here first. So now that this is all sorted, let's take it off my little engine stand and we'll start splitting these cases, I reckon. Righto, I have this case off my little stand now. I have most of the through bolts out. I haven't got the threaded ones out yet. The other thing that I've done, I just pulled this seal out of the back so it exposes the Timken bearings. So this is a Timken bearing bottom end. They started those things in 55. So everything pre-55, so all your pan into knuckle stuff, you have 2 needle rollers and then you have shims on the inside to stop your axial movement. In a Timken style bearing, you have 2 Timkens opposite each other, and when you tighten up your crank nut, they have a special spacer in between them that preloads them to the correct load, and then your crank doesn't float at all because it's got 2 Timkens tapers opposite each other. So they are super easy to put together. You don't have to assemble a case and then shim them. You just bolt them together with your nice little space between them and away they go. So I've only got a few bolts left that are fucking tight apparently. A few bolts left to pull out and then we can knock this thing apart. Remember, when you use a rattle gun, any extension always takes your torque away. So pull an extension off if you can't get the shit done. I'm sure everyone's going to whinge to me about using an impact, pulling this apart. Who gives a fuck, basically? Sure, you're not going to use an impact pulling it apart, but putting it together, but sure, pulling it apart, who gives a fuck? So these things are pretty tricky to get apart just because they are glued together. My buddy John has a weird little tool that he bolts on here and then pushes the main shaft out. I don't have that, so I'm going to do a little bit of whaling and we will split this thing. So get your freaking hammer. Start our whaling. I drained all the oil out of this thing before just to save myself a huge mess. There it is, split. So we're just going to, remember you've got needle rollers this side and Timken this side. So this side's not going to fall apart, but that one, oh no, that one's in a circlet. It should be right. They should both still come apart. So it might be easier if we sit it up like this. Oh no, this side is pressed on, isn't it? So let's pull this side off. So there's one side. This must be the first time it's open. We still have manufacturer markings on the inside, so that's pretty freaking cool. This side is on 2 Timkens, so you meant to press this apart. So you're supposed to press this side apart. You meant to put pressure on this side and knock it out of your Timken bearing there. So we will have to do that. I'll take this over to my little press and see if I can do that. So I've got my little press set up here. I've just got some blocks underneath the case, and then I'm going to push the main shaft or the sprocket shaft through the bearings like this. There it goes. Hopefully it doesn't need to go too far. That's it. So that is how we get our case off the 2. See, like I said, there's just 2 of these Timken bearings opposite each other, and that is what floats the crank inside the cases. So now that this is all completely stripped, you can see the little spacer in here. Do not lose this stuff and always keep it with the bearings if you're going to reuse them. I'm going to inspect these bearings, and if they look good, I will be reusing them. A Timken setup's probably 120-ish Australian dollars, so it's not completely breaking the bank changing it, but like I said, the old stuff is better than the new stuff. So let me check this out. Let me get rid of this freaking press again and we'll inspect this bottom end. Okay, now that I have this flywheel assembly completely out, I noticed a few things when we were pulling it apart. This thing has a Jim's pinion shaft in it, and see the color difference between the rods and the flywheels. Usually when this thing is been together its whole life or it's a factory motor, these will be the same color. You see how much lighter these are? This is a new rod set and a new pinion. I know it said it looked factory, but now that I've got it apart, this thing has been gone through as well. Looks like they've used the same bearings though. These bearings have a bit of life in it, have had a bit of a life, so I'll probably replace them. Like I said, they're only 100 and something bucks, so yeah, they're quite loose, so I think I'll replace that. But how good's that? We'll dig into this a bit further and really have a look, but basically all there is to do next is to split these flywheels, because I want to go through and balance this thing, check these bearings out. I want to do everything to this engine. Might as well, whether I keep it or sell it, doesn't really matter, it's going to be worth more. So 1 5/16 socket. Let's see if my trusty Ryobi can undo it. Should be about 150 foot-pounds from memory. Let's see what happens. Fucking piss it in. A lot of people do this. They put Loctite on this. Loctite is not the best to put on these threads, because when you're assembling this bottom end, you nip it up a little bit and then you go and make sure it's true, nip it up a little bit, true it. You sort of sneak up on the tension. So if you've got Loctite in there, it will lock up before you've got your nut to the correct torque setting. So if the thread is binding up, you are not going to put the correct torque into the taper. The taper is how it locks. So I don't love doing that, but a lot of people seem to do it. So once you've got the nut broken like that, we just want to get a nice copper hammer and hit the flywheel to split it. Just like that. So this side is keyed. Our pinion side is always keyed because we've got an oil passage going through here to the big end. So our sprocket side is not keyed. So let's pull this apart. Just like this. So first inspections, this is our thrust washer. They look new, so it must have been done when they did the big end here. Looks pretty fancy. This is the part where you usually lose all your rollers here. So, let's get our key out first, eh? So this is the key. Like I said, the other side is not keyed. But yeah, looks like a nice new rod set. Does it look like I'm struggling? Because it feels like I am. Come on, bro. Get off. Alright, that's got it. So, our little flywheel key there, don't fucking lose it. Put that with the nut. So this is the spot, the time where you lose all your rollers. So like I said, this is a nice new rod set. There's all our rollers. I'm going to get a bag and put them in it before we do too much more, so I don't completely fuck this up. So we got 3 aluminium cases in the bottom of these, because you have 3 parts to your rods. You have your center and then you have your 2 outers. So you've got a large cage and large rollers, which is this guy. And they run on the center, the knife and fork they call it. And then on the fork side, they are thinner with smaller rollers just like this. So let me put all these in here and we will inspect this a bit later. I just want to get rid of this so I don't lose any of it. Alright, double check. See? Put that to the side. Inspect our rods. Just have a look at the races. They look pretty nice. I might give them a little bit of a linish, but they look pretty good. Now our rod pin, what does that look like? You're just looking for any of the chrome picking up, but it all looks super nice. So let's undo the other side. Fuck, the old Ryobi fucking goes hard. So same thing, we need to break this taper. Sometimes we can put the nut back on and hit the shaft to help it out a bit. Just put that on a little bit so we don't damage the thread. Is that out or what? Nope. There it is. How am I going to get this off? Yeah. So this is a Jim's pinion. I wonder if the whole rod assembly is Jim's. Looks nice. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I won't be putting Loctite back on this when I put it together. For a little bit of oil, so all of the torque goes into the taper. So all that looks nice. Like I said, I think I'm going to replace these Timkins. They're relatively cheap. I'm there. I might as well. You have to split the whole cases again to change this inner one. So to save myself some work, I am going to do that. And these guys, I'm going to measure that up to the case, make sure I have the right float there so that when I put it back together, it's all good. But that is pretty well it for this video, I think. Righto, I consulted my little Bible here, and it says the pinion shaft bearings should be between 4 and 8 tenths of a thousand. So that is to the 4th decimal point. So it's just under 1,000. So I still need to go some oversized bearings. So I think I might upgrade to the longer roller. So with the longer roller style, doesn't have 2 races like this. It's just got a big long roller. And that obviously will hold more pressure. So it'll hold more weight because the roller is longer. So I'm going to update that, and I'm going to do new Timken bearings in this thing. So this thing should be pretty well fucking Mickey Mouse when we put it back together. So I'm going to go ahead and order these bits. I'm going to send these heads off to get some new guides put in. I don't have the machinery to do that yet. So send them off, get them done, order this stuff, and then I will start assembling these flywheels again. I want to balance these things. I want to put them all back together and make them super nice when I put this engine back together. So thanks for watching on this one. I'll see you on the next one. Not sure what I'm going to be doing on this bike next, but I cannot wait to get this project done. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.